one of the things I'm always curious about for you as a '06 commander, like you've kind of reached.
Are we doing this? Is
For
this happening?
oh my gosh, you're supposed to pretend like it's not happening.
Oh, okay.
But,
Sorry.
like,
I thought there would be
See,
like.
this is what happens when you bring in
I thought there'd be like
older
an
person
action.
to do this. Very serious, by the way. You know, obviously you were a second lieutenant at one point,
Yeah.
and there was this illusion that you had of what it would be like to be an actual brigade commander someday, and you've achieved that level of success, which is awesome. Like, you know, a bunch of people have done it before you, a bunch of people do it after you, so it's super unique. When in your command did the facade that you can do whatever you want be lifted, and you were like, nope, I just still do what I'm told?
Everybody works for somebody.
So that level of control. So like, where does that kind of freedom branch to what you thought you had, like for real, like what you thought you may have had, like coming down, like, man, I'm gonna be able to do all these awesome things. You know, we're gonna be super warrior focused, and then you realize Sergeant Major came in and said, well, actually, we got to go mow grass. Still, that's still a thing.
If we could mow the grass, that'd be awesome. I can't even get that to happen.
So
I don't know what level that happens at, because I'm a brigade commander. I can't get the grass mowed. So like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think so. It's the whole idea of the level of control. Like, I think I had more of an impact on people's lives as a company commander. Most certainly did, right? Because you can. What's that old? That old. Science says you can maintain about 150 relationships, or real meaningful relationships at any one time,
Sure.
right? So the Army's kind of figured that out. I don't know whether by virtue of just the evolution of organizations or by virtue of a plan way ahead. But what is every company? Every company's roughly about 100 some people, right? So as a company commander, you can maintain some degree of a personal relationship with all your soldiers. You can see them, you can meet them, you can know details about their lives, but you expand beyond that, and you lose that ability. It's just not, you don't have the cognitive capacity to maintain the relationship. So it changes the dynamics completely about how you can influence an organization, how you can impact people, and it changes significantly. And just by the tangible things that you can actually do that I miss. So as a battalion commander, again, like, you're the old man in the organization. Nobody really, most privates don't even really know who you are, then it's that guy that gets in front of formation once a week, right? But that's the thing, you can have a formation. If there's something I want to cut right through and get a piece of information out, I have a formation, and I can just say, hey, this is what I'm saying, blah, 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 blah. You can't do that at the brigade level, and you
could.
Well, you could, and nobody can hear you. What's that guy saying? Who's talking to us?
Did we not get a microphone?
Right? Like, it's so impractical. So I think you kind of long. I would say, as a brigade commander, I long for the ease of and the dynamic ability to influence and change. It's the whole oil tanker analogy, which is overused, but like, it's easy to turn a motorboat, but an oil tanker gets much more difficult to turn. So, man, I don't even know if I was going anywhere with the answer to the question.
That kind of makes me think. So because that's why people want to command. Like, that's why people, and everybody always says, well, company command is going to be the best job you ever had. And I think you highlighted why that is. You get to kind of influence things. Yeah. And then the minute you step out, you don't influence as much as you do anymore. So did you have that kind of knowledge coming in? So like, when you're coming into brigade command, you're like, okay, I know I'm not going to be able to directly influence as many people. No. Or did you're kind of like, oh, this sucks. Like, like 90 days in, you're like, oh man, this is not as fun as they told me it was going to be.
No. I'll tell you, my experience so far, battalion command has been the most fun, because you're at this. So you're going to hear this said a whole bunch of times, but at battalion command, you have this huge disparity between your experience level and 2 levels down, right? So you're sitting there as a battalion commander coming up, nearing your 20-year mark, and your company commanders are at their 5-year mark, 6-year mark, I don't know, wherever they sit. And so you've got this outsized influence. And quite honestly, I think that's probably one of the best things about BCAP, is the acknowledgement that, hey, when we select people, we have to have people with the right degree of empathy, the right degree of, no psychopathy. They're intelligent enough to recognize the influence that they bear. Because I think that is by far the most influential position in terms of mentorship of young officers and young NCOs. You're at that position where you have a significant more just authority authority, kind of vested in your experience and having that. As battalion commander, as brigade commander, my battalion commanders are, they're just one Army generation below me. They're just,
right.
they're very close. So I don't have the experience dominance, you could say, over them.
You're right, because theoretically, and I know battalion commanders are probably in that 15 to 18 year range initially. Some, depending on how their timeline went, they're at the end of their career. They've seen all the things, at least, that you have seen. In those captains company commanders are still virtually within 5 to 6 years of being. So that is a huge difference that I don't even think people really comprehend. There's a whole decade that you go in between company and battalion command, and battalion command is obviously not even promised. Like it's not even like a thing. Like it's a
that's the prize.
So you are at the tail end of your time. You do transition out this summer, and we'll talk about probably that here in a little bit. But you, most of your, I think, 5 of the 6 battalion commanders switched out at your halfway mark.
Yeah.
Which means you, in talking of this facade that you kind of work through of what brigade command really is and how you have to figure that out for yourself, influencing this initial crop of battalion commanders to even include the one that just came in, that was new, and then a year later, you get 5 of 6 brand new guys to come in and command. What was that challenging, or was it easier because you were comfortable?
No, I thought that was actually one of the more enjoyable. That's weird to say that, but like one of the more enjoyable things was that transition. Not because I loved that first crop, and I built strong relationships with all of them, and I was really excited to see where they were going. But you have to develop this, this kind of relationship with them, where they become your guys, right?
Yep.
And I felt like they became my guys, but it really took some time. It took some shared suffering to get to that point. So I really enjoyed when the new crew came in. Like, okay, now I've got a year under my belt. I know what I would tell a battalion commander to expect from me. One of the big things I tell battalion commanders, and I said this was the biggest surprise for me as a battalion commander, and I always tell them this, is you are going to be surprised, kind of shocked at the level of autonomy you have. Like, you always think, oh, my boss is going to be on me. Nope. Like you kind of operate pretty independently, and there's a lot of trust. There's a lot more. I mean, just nature of organizational leadership, right?
Yep.
So I really kind of enjoyed like telling them like, hey, get comfortable assuming risk. Get comfortable with the level of independence you're going to have. And then just the other problem is it's communications and relationships. Like I could shape that a little bit more and like, okay, here's the people on post you're going to have a relationship, or the people either on post, the people at brigade, the people at division, and you're going to maintain a relationship with them. And as a major, you can get you can go hot or cold in different relationships, and it just kind of depends on the winds. But like as a battalion commander, you go cold on a relationship that has a significant impact on the organization. It has a significant impact on everyone around you, and you are making decisions not just for your own personal ego, but you're making decisions that are going to impact soldiers. So you have to be so measured and so careful, and know with each of these relationships, like what is, it can't be just transactional. What is there's a transactional nature to it, this and that, but there's actually like an investment, transformational kind of component of this. Like I'm investing in you because I think you're going to be able to provide the organization with a future that I can't predict, right? Like I just think like having good relationships and building a good reputation for the unit is going to be really important. But there's going to be relationships that are inherently full of friction. And you being one of my former staff officers know this, right? Like there's this inherent friction associated with, the next echelon up and the next echelon down. Like nobody is working nearly as hard as you are, and nobody gets it, nobody has it. And so as best you can, trying to build context, trying to communicate a shared vision, that stuff all breathes really well. But, how do you do that? And I mean, that's what was fun about bringing the new crop in, is I could sit there and say, hey, this is what you can expect in terms of how I will communicate with you, how often. Things that are, that I think kind of surprised me as a battalion commander is like, as a battalion commander, when the DCG shows up in your motor pool, you're on your own. You can't phone a friend and say, hey, Colonel Lauer, just so you know,
especially
General Tillis is down here and he's tearing me up for my motor pool, and I'm like, well, maybe you should listen. Maybe you should
take good notes. See ya.
So
I'm in a meeting.
I mean, and that's part of the deal. Like there, you have to learn how to engage with senior leaders independent and without top cover and be confident.
I think you're right there. So and I feel like maybe that position, I'm not there, but even you kind of feel this as a field grade. When your first time, either if it's on division staff or at a battalion staff, where obviously it's all you. Everything the brigade is and does, and the reputation of the brigade is on you and sergeant major and whatever else that you guys do together. It's awesome and great. Hopefully they're doing the right things. You can't be at all 6 battalions at the same time, but that level, and I think at that level of experience that they're on. They really are. Like you're on an island, and you're not always a direct reflection of that brigade commander, because you're an adult. You're now in this command that's making your own decisions. And I've felt that for the first time. Not my supervisor wasn't getting yelled at because of something dumb I did. Like, well, no, you're a field grade officer now, and so you have some some responsibility here of just doing your job because that's what we're expecting you to do.
Yeah.
And so I really think with that. Maybe there is a little bit more of that.
I would say as a brigade commander, I've been very fortunate, particularly, frankly, good relationships with DCGs. I've been very fortunate that, they come out of those jobs, and so they were just battalion, or they were just brigade commanders themselves. Right. So I've been fortunate to have them, they have this understanding. It's like, yeah, it's not Ian's fault. It's like, hey, everybody, let's go out and drunk drive this weekend, right? They know that, and they have that context, and they have that feel. So, I've felt in brigade command, there's been a lot of patience with. It's not about, it's okay organizationally. What can you control? What are you doing about it? And are you necessarily being reactive? I don't know. It's that whole thing. Like, is command happening to you, or are you commanding?
Are you just Are you crossing your fingers, hoping things don't happen, or did you put in enough systems or whatever to say, hey, we do care about this. Now it's on soldiers to make the right decision.
I think honestly that mantra, are you commanding, or is command happening to you, is kind of like helped me. I'm saying that to myself. It's like helped me. It's like some days you are, command is just happening to you, and you're like, well, let's see where this goes. But
roll the dice.
I think commanding, like when you feel like you're commanding, you've got, I got my priorities set. Things are going to happen, and collateral things are going to happen, and we've got the system set to be able to manage those. I don't know.
Where did you feel like you were commanding in that same reference there? So where were you commanding the most?
Well, this is a cheap answer.
I know.
But
that's why I asked. I know what you're going to say.
I'm going to say NTC,
yeah.
right? Like
but
that.
Sorry, before you get to I say that because that's like your freedom. That's like your month to be out there.
Yeah.
And obviously the division's there and watching you because we don't want you to screw up. But we're and we have to be. But you're there.
Yeah.
But it's finally it's kind of your show. Whether you're good or bad, I mean it's your show. Like there's nobody there to be like, rein you in real quick.
Well, and the funny thing is, everybody's like, no, we don't, every time you start talking tactics, everybody's like, well, tactics are kind of like, everybody's got an opinion on tactics. Well, no, some tactics work better than others, right? So, we're always careful to critique each other tactics. And I would like to see us, and one of the things I like to get company commanders is this play, there's some science here. This play will work or it doesn't work. Like you go to football and everybody goes, well, they ran an option, but that's okay. No, I don't want to judge. Like certain plays are going to work and certain plays will not work. And so that's what I think with National Training Center, going there as a brigade commander, you're like, there's nobody around you saying like, oh, that's a really bad idea, or they're just like, okay, the commander wants to do this, especially when you get in this time crunch, this time constraint. Nobody is second guessing on top of you your plan. Now, I think in another environment where you're fully integrated into a division, and I'm back briefing a DCG or the CG saying, hey, sir, this is this is my plan, and he's like, really? Then
I wouldn't do that.
like, then you would feel a little bit more comfortable, like you got some accountability, right? But I don't. When you go there, it's like, hey, man, you've been selected to be a brigade commander. Congratulations. Now go be a brigade commander, and don't feel sorry for yourself. So I felt like I had the most freedom of action, I guess. I don't know, was there.
Mentally with that, was that actually fun or was there a little bit like kind of more stressful, or was it just like I'm so excited to do this? Division's not here to bug me. Well, there is a division, but they're just information feeding, right? They're not actually.
Honestly, it was fun. Like, and I looked at my XO, poor guy, and he was not having fun.
He shouldn't have been.
I know, and like I wouldn't have expected him to, but like I really enjoyed it. And then you get on the mic and you're moving, especially like when you're like, getting reports and you're maneuvering companies over, an entire company moving, and then you just put that context in your mind. You're like, I just told an entire mechanized infantry company to pick up, move from their position, go 10 kilometers, and then just go do this thing that in my mind seems really simple to say, right. Task and purpose, but as it's executed, you're like, there's a whole lot of soldiers that just went, where are we going? I don't know. They just want us to go here.
Day 8 where they're not.
There was no care in the world about what they're doing. So like, I think it's really, hey, I need you to go set a javelin position up and get in the high ground, blah 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 blah.
You're gonna win this war for us.
they're like, okay, gotta get javelin up there, and so.
It's not a good time to tell them that we lost it.
We don't have any batteries for these clues anyway. I don't know what he's talking about. No, it was good. I think that was the most fun I had. Now the stress comes from just like, I think we all have moments of like, is this plan gonna work? Right. Everybody's looking at me.
And there's no one to tell you, because all the majors are too scared to tell you it's a bad plan, because they're like, oh, you said to do it, and there's nobody above you to be like, I don't know. You can try it. Everyone tries it, but you'll fail just like everybody else.
I enjoyed that. I had fun. Wish I could slept more, but like other than that.
Well, that's on you. And I always tell people, it's just your lack of trust. If you just had more trust in your XO.
That's right.
Like
you'd have only been performing better.
Yeah. So obviously that's super fun. Probably the most fun thing you'll do in command. What's been, even the things that you maybe not feel comfortable talking about? Like, what's been the most challenging thing that you didn't, like, you knew it was part of the job, but when it came to it, you're like, oh, this sucks and this is really hard.
I tell you, I had a lot of anxiety coming in about maintenance. As a battalion commander, initially, I had, everybody will say that, but I came into an organization that had a fleet that was not healthy at all. And a different time, I felt at the time that I could control the things I could control, but just Enterprise didn't have the level of part supply, and we were just in a hole, and I felt like we were just digging ourselves out of a hole. So coming into the organization, my number one concern was maintenance, because what would happen so often is a leader would come down to me and say, well, you just don't have a maintenance culture. And I'd say, sir, you are 100% correct. We do not have a maintenance culture, but I can't build a maintenance culture if I don't have the cast to get parts, if I'm not receiving even any parts. If the 5988 that the soldier fills out and gets updated, he's not going to get anything for it anyway. Like, if we're not building all the basics of a good command maintenance discipline program, then it's hard to build that culture. Towards, at the end of my command, I was fortunate enough when we were in Korea, where we had a fleet that was much healthier, and we were able to stay on top of it, and you felt like, okay, we're in a good place. And I think at that point, I could see us building the maintenance culture. But as I came into brigade command, I was like, I because your ability to just like, hey,
it's out of your control.
do more maintenance, do it harder.
Just be down there better.
Like turn more wrenches for some reason.
Put 2 wrenches in each hand.
It just, I mean, you control what you control. So that's where I had the most anxiety. I came in, I have, in my experience, the best SPO MATO that I've ever worked with, seen, operated with, and having exos and being able to just kind of establish those priorities, it hasn't kept me up at night, I guess.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So when you, we talked a lot about obviously your brigade time, because that's what you're doing now. So it's the freshest in your mind and your memory's fading. What's been the biggest, I think we kind of touched upon it at the beginning in a joking way, but what's been that biggest, thing that maybe you kind of miss early in your career as a second lieutenant, where you don't have all this kind of responsibility, and then maybe what's one thing you've noticed about yourself that you've grown, as if you were to kind of tell somebody I used to be not very good, and then now choice words that your first company commander shared with you, to where you are now, and you're like, wow, I never even because the goal is. Most people say the goal is battalion command. It's just, if I can just get battalion command. Well, now you met that goal and you're at the next goal. So where, you've achieved quite a bit, whether or not you like to admit it as a super humble person. So where's that? What do you think has been the most growth that you've
I'm
experienced?
super humble. Yeah. Gosh, it hurts to be so humble.
There's a sign above your office that says
I'm
super humble.
So humble. Okay, so I would argue, what do I miss? I miss the proximity of peers. So the lower you are, the more you have peers. So man, being a lieutenant was so much fun, and you forget about it. But being a lieutenant was so much fun, having those peers right there. You were talking to all the time, and then as you advance, they just become a little bit more separated. You still, as a company commander, you've got your fellow company commanders, right. But and then share. But I see my fellow brigade commanders a couple times a week, and I love those guys to death. And it's funny because we're every time we see each other, it's like kids at a park. Oh, other kids. I run immediately to and we're like, hey, what's this latest guidance on this, and we can talk about it. And we can share, we can lament together, and
right.
It's really, really important, and it's really hard if you don't seek out those opportunities. So we did the proclamation signing yesterday. It was great event. Took all of maybe 15 minutes, but don't tell my boss, but we stayed there for an extra 30, 45 minutes just talking.
He was just upstairs.
But we're just talking with my other brigade commanders, just sharing how are they doing certain things, and then just having friends. So I think that's what I miss the most, and that's what I would that's what I tell people is don't let yourself fall into isolation at all, because that's really easy too.
Yeah. Well, and you said something you share things, and in combat arms guys, maybe so in the AG world, creating systems and having these products that help you do your work, to help you break down all this data that comes in that we're trying to show people like you all the time. But we always say, well, yeah, share your products. Go help out your fellow AG people. Never once has anybody shared anything with me, and I've never shared any. Actually, that's not true. We have shared, Raj's dashboard. We try to share that with everybody whenever he first made it. So, but that's never a thing. Yeah. And I think maybe as you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but do you feel, man, I should share more or try to get more at this battalion and brigade level than maybe I was back when I was a selfish little
No, I think
officer.
Everybody wants it. The cool thing is, this is, I don't know if it seems counterintuitive, but what I've noticed more is, as I've progressed, is people were a little bit more ambitious when they were younger, when it really didn't matter. And now that, I don't feel in any way that any of my peers are angling against me. I've never felt that way, or that they would hold something back. I think for the most part, though, you're also kind of you're kind of confident with how you're doing things and how you want to do things. So it's people will share some things, but for the most part, it's like it works for your organization, probably doesn't work for mine. I don't know.
Yeah,
we're just in different
dynamics.
places.
Right.
I don't know.
Even with two brigades that are, virtually the same, and you would think, that we should have a lot of the similar problems.
Yeah, and Colonel Smith and I are probably at this point is the closest I've ever seen the brigades to being in a common place in terms of both readiness, in terms of strength, all that kind of the mission that we have. But that's changing right now as we're getting on the eve of deployment. We're going to go. I mean, it's going to be a different priority. So like I feel like we've never been able to like, hey, other than share like, hey, when we were unavailable, we were able to cover down on each other during CalFexes, for example, and help each other. I think that provided a little bit of an ability to cross level and share some information. But yeah, I've never felt like that. So I think I think it's a again, like it's the isolation thing. We're all kind of you're fighting your own fight to a degree. You just have to, if you let yourself just go internal, you're not achieving the best for your organization. You got to stay up and out and keep looking out.
Yeah, build it, and like you talked about, building those relationships are huge. So let's talk about what you're doing next. I think is it safe to talk about that actually?
I think so.
Okay, good. Well, so what are you doing next? What are you transition out this summer?
So this summer I'll transition out. I'll go to be the commander of operations group at the National Training Center. So.
Is that a big deal? Is that like cool?
It's I think for most, at least the armor community, we look at that as like it's a great job because it's command, and I've been really fortunate to have commanded twice at every echelon. So this will be super humble. So like, I mean, number one, command is just good because it's a position of influence, kind of what you want to do to begin with. But then. To your point earlier, like I get to talk tactics with everybody and just like focus on the lethality of brigade combat teams more than worrying about readiness and worrying about personnel, and indiscipline.
Be careful what you say. Those are
things
kind of
like,
my life. So,
it's like there's nothing wrong with it. But I get to focus on the tactics, which is just really the fun part. Which, ironically, the most difficult thing I think we do as brigade commanders, and the thing we talk about the most, and it's probably the thing as a brigade commander you do the least.
Right.
You're doing some training, but for the most part you're absorbed in other things. And then when you finally get to do brigade level operations, how does a brigade fight, which is different, right? You only get to do it for these very short periods of time in national training. And I say this because how you fight at every echelon doesn't scale. It's not like, hey, we just, we got trained platoons, we glue them together, and that becomes company, and then we just glue companies together, and then battalion. Like, how you fight fundamentally changes at the echelon you lead. And then when you get to the brigade combat team, you're at a level of not only tactical depth that you have to account for that's far greater, but you have a combined arms warfighting formation that it isn't like, well, I'm a maneuver guy, I'm I can do this stuff. Like that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Do you understand logistics? Do you understand how to sustain over time? I mean, it adds a dimension that is really, it's hard. And I don't think I did it particularly well. So
that's what I heard.
There's double talking about it. So I really think that I'm really excited to go see it, and like, oh man, I'm a nerd with NTC because it's such it's like a factory for brigade readiness. If you ever go to the National Training Center, it's out there in the middle of the Mojave, right? And everybody's like, oh man, it's in the middle of Mojave, but everybody there is focused on the brigade combat team that is rotating in. So Ops Group 916. National Training Center headquarters, Black Horse. Everybody exists to train the brigade combat team coming in. And I always say this to soldiers, not as hyperbole, but as fact, as truth. When you go to the National Training Center and you are as highly trained as you can be at a home station training, and you go to the National Training Center, you come out of the National Training Center, the most lethal formation in the world. and everybody's like, "Oh, that's a big statement." Yeah, it's true. What other army in the world has the National Training Center, has the ability to maneuver like that? Very, very few. How many of them have the money, the resources to be able to take an entire brigade,
It's a lot.
put them on a train, bring them out there? So not only do you rehearse deployment, expeditionary deployment, that medal, but then you get there and you do all your warfighting medal, and you know it's something that you just don't get in other forces. So when you come out of there, you have been enabled with a roughly $50 million investment from the United States Army of like.
That you just threw away.
And that's just it. Like, you can squander that, and that talk about what things that weigh on your mind as brigade commander is like, did I get the most out of this 50 million? And that's what I think is so cool about NTC. Like, I love that. I was an OC at NTC, kind of coming out of GWAT. As a KD complete major, I was kind of at this point where I did my KD time in Afghanistan and came back. I was like, I really want to be part of where the Army's going next. I was like, I really want to be part of, getting us back to the time, I think we called it high intensity conflict or something.
Right, yeah, something.
And it was really cool. So, at the time, it was funny too. I was like, I mean, maybe I'll get the chance to go to, be an OC. And, they had, branch had given out this kind of options of what to do, and I was like, is it possibly an OC? And they're like, yeah, no problem. And I was like,
what you
really?
didn't know is we're short all the time.
I was like, they really needed it.
You're
I was
a
like,
fool
oh, wow.
for asking.
So I
Even
was like,
mentioning
I
it.
get to be an OC, and it was, but it was the best job ever. I joke, but it was like the best job. Like, man, you get to go camping with your friends.
Which is what, this is what the soldiers call it. Yeah.
So it was a really good job, and like, you just get to nerd out on tactics, and you get to see a rotation every month come through and try something different, and you're like, oh, well, that kind of worked, that didn't. So getting to command that command the operations group is like a dream come true for me. That sounds stupid, but
no, it's good to know, because at this point, because we've talked about it before, and you've kind of showed it to me when you were doing your best attempt at initial A council, which was like, hey, the Army's not going to tell you these things, but as you go on, you're losing choices. Like, at the more that you go, and if you have choices, it means the Army's lost interest in you. But so, to still be able to go do something with your lack of choices, because people are kind of deciding who's going to fit these positions best based on probably what you want to do too. I don't know if they've ever asked you, like, Colonel Lauer, do you actually want to do anything fun, or are you looking to get out? And you're like, oh, I'm still looking for fun, sir. Like,
this is what I would offer. I don't know who's listening to this, but
Sergeant Barnett, Kenneth. You
don't
think I'd remember.
But what I would offer so this is the hardest thing. We've always felt awkward about, like, maintaining mentorships, right? Because it's like The Bachelor. Like, here's a rose I give to you.
Because you choose. I choose my mentees.
I choose you.
Yeah.
You shall mentor me, and I shall be. But it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm good.
It doesn't have to be that cringy. But, like, I truly believe, like, you got to maintain, like there are just people. There's people in the Army that you just keep maintaining contact, because they're just such cool people. And you're like, hey, and you just send in check-in notes. I can tell you, as a brigade commander, people send me check-in notes every once in a while, and they're just sometimes just company commanders or something. I just like, and I know it's just so cool to hear from them and to go, oh, this person wants to hear from me, and it means a lot to me that they still do that. And I know I have a problem. I don't want to reach out to somebody.
Right.
I don't want them to think I'm just like, trying to maintain contact. But I think it's really important that we build and kind of, as much as really just inculcate this sense of a responsibility. Of the Connor Fox sort of mentality of pick people that you want to invest in and help them kind of see the best progression, the best way to do it, and particularly in light of the autonomy we've given to soldiers and officers and NCOs a lot more now, where we're like, hey, kind of pick your own adventure. The allure of duty location can lead people astray, I think.
Yeah.
And I think, if you start out with the number one rule is do the hardest job. Do the hardest job. Pick the job that is going to challenge you the most, and is going to provide the most for the Army. I think if you start with that sort of assumption, you're not going to lead through a career that's not rewarding, and that's kind of what I followed.
So speaking of a career that's been rewarding, you're super young. You've been in the Army not that long.
Super.
So old enough to have a son that's also serving in the Army. Just what's that like? Is that
it's created a new sense of like. Well, first of all, I think everybody, every officer should have a son that's enlisted, because they can tell you things that you forgot. Like I'd gotten in front of I was doing a formation once or something. I had a brigade formation again, the formation where everybody's like, "Who's that guy?" And I was talking to him. He was home on leave or something. I was thinking it was for Christmas, and I was like, "Hey, Truman, what are the kind of things that soldiers like to hear?" And he's like, nobody's listening to you anyway, Dad. So like, and it was really helpful. Like it's real grounding to do that. But what I tell you in another sense, and what I offer to NCOs all the time is, oh my gosh, your role as an NCO is so much more important than you even realize. Like just the impact you had as, I see him and I've seen him relay his interactions with bad NCOs and with good NCOs. And what it has done, it's frustrating. He'll be one place and he'll have pay issues and nobody will care. And you'll want him, you'll let him work through it, and he works through it, but you'll just be like, where was his NCO in this, right?
Yeah.
And then he'll go to another, have an NCO that like, hey, here's your challenge, let's get you over there, I'm going to walk you over here. And they're not like nice to him. Like it's not like,
he's got a bad personality.
He's getting he's getting trained and meant, but he sees it. And that's what I would offer too is like soldiers, what I appreciate now is soldiers see good NCOs and bad NCOs that they're not going to highlight, but they're like, oh, that's a good NCO.
Right.
And hearing him relay that just has really grounded me to a lot of the things that matter. In other ways, it's kind of grounded too. We ask soldiers to do a lot. Like we ask them, go online, do your SGLI, do your DD-93. Well, it's always easy for us to just say to do that, but for him, it's like, okay, I got to go try to find time to get over to the library. I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to put my little card in. Oh, what do you know? Like the certificates don't work on this particularly licensed. And he's like, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what to do, and I just squandered the 30 minutes I had to go update my DD-93. Everything is harder. Everything is just a little bit harder, and so I use that as it just kind of grounds me. It's like, hey, just remember what we're asking our soldiers to do. A little bit. Keep that in mind. Not that we're asking less of them, just keep in mind it may not be as easy as you think it is.
With with the modern times technology, email, you've heard of it. I think you're right. I think
computers.
We're asking them to do more because we think we've made something more simple.
Yeah.
Or and it's.
I think we have to look critically at what automation has done to us in certain ways. It is the ease of information flow has also impacted some cognitive offloading. And what I'd argue is like, okay, for example, I am not one of these people that's like, oh, the NCOs and everybody was so much better and we were all so much more handsome when I first came in. The fact is, like, we're the same people. Everybody wants to make a big deal of the generation, but we're the same people. That's one of the things I think. But as an example, when you showed up in the morning when I was a platoon leader, the platoon sergeant had a clipboard, and it had everybody where they were at. And he was like, okay, Lieutenant Lauer's here, Sergeant Smith is here, oh, so-and-so's not here. And then we didn't have a cell phone at the time, but so like you were like, oh, this guy didn't show up, but you knew they weren't there.
Right.
And he did all this before like about 5:30, because 5:45 is when first sergeant had his platoon sergeant meeting every morning. So then he would go in and he'd bring the clipboard and he'd go hang it up there. And I remember then the one, there was like 4 computers in the entire headquarters, right?
Because they took up the whole headquarters.
But like then the training room NCO would get up and he would go grab the things and he would start to update, update your per stat. And just that function of like that level of like slow down, make sure the people are here where they're at. I think that the temptation now with the ease of the transferability of information is that it's not slowing us down to say, oh, so-and-so didn't show up at 06. Where are they at? Now I can call them on the cell phone. And what I've, I harp on with the NCOs is like, when is the first time you realize a soldier's in that formation? Is it at 6:30 when formation starts? You're like, wait, where's Lauer? Like, that should not be the first time.
Yeah.
The first time should be well before that, probably before there's a platoon sergeant meeting where the first sergeant and platoon sergeants are talking about, who's got to go on a tasking today? Who's got to do this, right? So I have like, I try not to stick too hard to anachronistic ideas, but I think that is like an artifact of that we need to kind of pull back and be a little bit more deliberate.
Do you think about that more now with Truman?
Yes.
Like
in what, because, he's got, he showed up to his first battalion and they dug into his finances. They're like, well, what are you doing to save money? What are you doing? Now, he's done everything right because we forced him to, right?
Yeah,
like we set him up with a financial advisor and he's done nothing but train, really. He's been going to school for about 3 years. So he's got cash, just he doesn't know what to do with. So
they're like, well, you got to go to this dealership. There's a
they were they were very worried. Like they were like, how are you paying for your vehicle? How are you doing this? How are you doing? They dug into his finances. And I just thought like that made me feel so great. Like, wow, people are really, looking after him. And I thought, I hope that happens. That's ubiquitous, but I'm sure it's not always the case.
All right, so I'll leave you with this. So there was a moment when you asked him, said, hey, what do soldiers care about? And he said, wow, they're not listening to you anyway. But you are, behind the curtain, you are somebody that cares about soldiers a lot. It's not just words that you say because you're like, I got to motivate these guys to do something for the brigade today. Like, you truly do care. I've heard you talk about it, when no one's around.
Don't let them know. Don't let them think.
I said behind the curtain before. I told you. How do you? I feel like that's a challenging thing because maybe it's a social media world now where you're just like, well, we're just being told the things we need to hear. And how do you make sure that people know, like, you're 06 commander that you see once ever. Like, I do care about what you're doing every day because what you're doing matters. And, how do you, I guess, communicate that?
Yeah, I don't know that you communicate it in anything other than intangibles. It's not like other than just, like, there are things that I do. Like, I make an effort, one of the patching ceremony. I make an effort to go to that every time, even if it's only a few people, because and I tell them right away, it's like, hey, I'm probably just going to be a face on the wall for the most part. And to kind of dial that back, I'm actually okay with that level of anonymity with soldiers. Like, I expect them to know who their first line is.
Right.
I expect them to know who their first sergeant is. Beyond that, like, if those people are doing their job and owning all the guidance, if they know who their sergeant major, they're going to say, who commands the battalion? If I asked Truman, I'd say, who commands the battalion? I don't know, sergeant major so-and-so. Like, which is great. Which is great. Like, drive on with that. So I think you do that like that. It's little touch points. It's having the humanity when you're having a sense of humanity when you're approving personnel actions, when you're doing awards, that kind of stuff. Not that you're, because there is a cold hard calculus to our business, and I think that is what you have to measure. You have to be balanced. There's a cold hard calculus of readiness. We fight away games. That's what we do. We are the traveling hockey team, right? That's your parents signed you up for it, fully knowing that you were going to travel all over the state to do it, right? So the same thing applies to the Army. Like, you signed up for the traveling team. And so there's the cold hard calculus of readiness goes into that, and making sure that you maximize that, and like, we have a responsibility in American people to do that. The balancing, soldier care is like, hey, making sure soldiers are recognized for their achievements. One of the things I've been really big on is achievement awards. Sometimes I just don't think I think awards have become so service based. And I don't think I feel like we're losing. Sometimes we're awarding people who probably doesn't have the meaning that it would have to, private.
Because it's automatic.
Because
You
it's
can't
like
leave without it.
you're getting your PCS award or an ETS award, and it's just like, well, what about giving them an award while they're here because they did something awesome in the middle of the night at NTC, like repaired 5 tanks and then jumped into a fight. Like, if you can find those, and those things are hard to pull out. It's hard to identify those people and identify those actions. But if you get people primed to hey, look for that greatness, and I'll recognize it. Like, I'm not afraid to sign off on an AM or an RCOM to get the person that recognition they need, or they deserved. I think that's powerful. But other than that, like, I just show up at work every day and like.
Well, you couldn't close this any better. So, sir, I appreciate you coming by.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.